Hello, this is Mike Schneider. On this Throwback Thursday, we revisit the year 2004, when Pixar was in the midst of an unprecedented run of animated movie box office hits. And playing accordion in each one was our 2004 Personality of the Year, living polka legend Joey Miskulin. For more information and to join the Polka Visionary Society, please visit MikeSchneiderband.com and click on the fan club link at the top of the page. Happy Throwback Thursday, and thanks for listening.
It's time for the introduction of this year's Polka Visionary Personality of the Year. Now, here's your host, Mike Schneider, with a very special guest.
And thank you, Jeremy. This year's Polka Visionary Personality of the Year picked up his first accordion 50 years ago at age 4.5, and has barely set it down since. He's recorded with everyone, as he says, from Chet Atkins to Townes Van Zandt, and then Frank Yankovic collecting Grammy Awards and nominations along the way. No newcomer to such honors, our winner is a Lifetime Achievement member in the National Cleveland Style Polka Hall of Fame, the International Polka Association, and the Iron World Polka Hall of Fame in Chisholm, Minnesota. This year's personality was kind enough to spend a few minutes with us, despite his busy touring schedule with Riders in the Sky. So right now, it's an honor for me to introduce our Polka Visionary Personality of the Year for 2004, Cow Polka King Mr. Joey Miskulin. And Joey, let's start things from the beginning here. How did you get your start in polka music?
Well, Michael, I started playing accordion when I was 5 years old. Started taking lessons when I was 5. And I took lessons on and off until I was about 11 years old, I guess. And I had been sitting in with some of the local bands in Chicago. Joe Kovich was one, a band very much liked and loved by Eddie Blatnick, who is the premier polka personality on WTAQ. Eddie Blatnick was a very good friend of Frank Yankovic's, and for a short time was his manager. And Ronnie Lee from Berlin, Wisconsin, who had Ronnie and the Jolly Ravens, asked me to join his band. He heard me play, and I said sure. It was shortly after that Roman Pasetti, who had probably in the Chicagoland area the premier polka band. And he was on television, of course, and on radio, and he asked me to play with him. So I joined his band, left Ronnie, and joined Roman. And it was during the time I was with Roman that Frankie Yankovic saw me play and asked me to join his band. So that happened in around 1963. I started playing with Frank. And at any rate, Frank saw me play with Roman, and it wasn't long before he asked me to join his band, and I was recording on Columbia Records with him. So that's how I got into the polka business.
You're obviously a very accomplished musician, Joey. Who are your musical influences?
Well, I'll tell you, really, as far as music, accordion players, it had to be Art Van Dam and Frank Yankovic. But really, I didn't just listen to accordion players. I listened to clarinet players. I listened to Artie Shaw and Benny Goodman and picked up a lot of my phrasing from clarinet players. I listened to trombone players like Tommy Dorsey to find phrasing, musical phrasing. Those were the guys that really moved me, and I always had my ears open to all kinds of music. I always say that I was very fortunate growing up in Chicago because I could listen to rock and roll on WLS during the week, and then on Friday nights I could listen to jazz. On Saturday nights I could listen to the National Barn Dance, and on Sundays I could listen to polka music. So I was very aware of all the music that was happening around me. I never looked at one genre, although I gravitated toward polka music because my grandparents and my folks were of Slovenian and Croatian descent, and there was always music in our house. And of course, Frankie Yankovic was the king. We had Grandpa had all of his 78s, and so that's pretty much how that happened.
You know, Joey, one of my favorite Slovenian-style polka bands of all time is the Mystery Band, which you, of course, were part of. Can you tell me a little bit about the Mystery Band, or did you have any favorite songs that you recorded?
Well, let me tell you about the Mystery Band. We had a great time, and the reason why I formed that orchestra was I had Miskulin's Lounge in Cleveland, which I opened up in 1978, and decided that I should have a band that would play at the lounge, as well as hiring the local bands, for example, Johnny Vadnal, the Pecan Organization, Mark Xager, a lot of them, Eddie Stamfel at that time, Eddie Rodick, the Wojtylas, all the premier bands that were in Cleveland I used to hire. So Johnny Pecan unfortunately had passed away in 1975, which left his partner, Lou Trebar, at liberty to play with other people. When I had the lounge, it wasn't long before Trebar started coming to the lounge every day after work, and we would jam. Of course, I had gotten off the road with Yankovic because I had the lounge, and had been playing in the Cleveland area for some time at Otino's. I recorded a record, Joey, live at Otino's. And at any rate, I asked Tree Bar, why don't we do something together, form a band? So we formed the Miskulin Tree Bar Orchestra, and that's how we started. I got Dave Walnick on drums, Willie Straw on bass, and there was a guy who lived in Youngstown, Ohio, by the name of Norm Cobal, who liked the band so much that he used to come up on Wednesdays. We used to play Wednesday, Friday, have polka music Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at the lounge, and most likely we would be the ones that were appearing on Wednesdays. And Norm would come up and play for free, and I eventually hired him in the orchestra, and that's how the mystery band started. But I must say that I had such a great partner in Lou Trebar, always a wonderful gentleman, and certainly a musical genius who came from the traditional school of how polka music should be played, with the Strauss influence, with the Lauschy influence, and of course the Hoyer Trio. Lou knew all these people, with the exception of Strauss, of course. And it became a real good organization, I think, and we made 2 really good records, I believe.
Now, we were talking before the interview started about one of the songs that you recorded with the Mystery Band. Was this Song of the Year for the Cleveland Style Polka Hall of Fame, or was this also part of the Album of the Year?
Well, both. It was the Album of the Year for sure. And later, the song was chosen as the very first song to be enshrined in the National Cleveland Slovenia Style Polka Hall of Fame. It came time for the first record, and I sat down and wrote a lot of songs. And there was a song that I had written that we played a few times just in rehearsal, and I decided, well, I didn't care so much for it. I thought it was just an average song and not very challenging, and the song was called I Want to Call You Sweetheart. And my wife, I told her, she said, are you going to record that song? And I said, no, I just don't think very much of it. And she said, well, I think you ought to record it. It's a very catchy tune. I think a lot of people will play it. And I still thought, well, maybe not. Tree Bar came to me, he said, you better listen to your wife. So I said, okay, what I'll do is on the record, I'll name it I Want to Call You Sweetheart, and then in parentheses, I'll say Patty's song. Because when people ask me, why in the heck did you record that song? I can say, well, because my wife wanted me to do it. I really didn't want to. Well, as you know, that song was chosen as Song of the Year and enshrined in the Hall of Fame, so Patty was right as usual.
Well, let's give that one a spin then. What year was this from, Joey?
This was from 1979. Recorded at Peppermint Studios, Indianola Avenue in Youngstown, Ohio, by Gary Ramey, one of the greatest polka engineers on this earth. I Want to Call You Sweetheart.
Right here on the Mike Schneider Band Year in Review.
I wanna call you sweetheart, wanna call you dear, but words just fail me whenever you are near. Wanna take you dancing, wanna hold you tight, I wanna know that feeling of delight. Wish I had the courage like the other guys who look at you with love light in their eyes. Excuse me, did you say you'd like to dance with me? Oh, honey, yes, sirree. I wanna call you sweetheart, wanna call you dear, but words just fail me whenever you are near. Wanna take you dancing, wanna hold you tight, I wanna know that feeling of delight. Wish I had the courage like the other guys who look at you with love light in their eyes. Excuse me, did you say you'd like to dance with me? Oh, honey, yes, sirree.
latest reissue, Together Again. That was the Mystery Band with I Want to Call You Sweetheart. And you can get that at the Cleveland Style Polka Hall of Fame Polka Music Shop. And we are talking right now with our second annual Polka Visionary Personality of the Year for 2004, Joey Miskulin. Now, Joey, we just talked a little bit about Peppermint Productions, and I'd like to know a little bit more about your first recording studio experience. What was it like and who was it with?
My first recording studio experience was with Roman Passetti at Balkan Recording Studios in Chicago, which was an extreme thrill for me. Actually, that was the first commercial recording, but I must say that I did a recording at Balkan Studios when I was very young. I was probably, 6 or 7 years old, and that recording still exists. It's on an acetate. And then didn't do anything until I recorded there with Roman, and it was a big thrill for me to have my picture on an album cover and to know that I'd recorded this record. After that, I was just thrown headfirst into the water recording with Frankie Yankovic. And of course, at Columbia, the engineers and the producers told Frank, well, we don't want Joey to record this kid. We want your regular recording band. And Frank said, you've not heard him play yet. Believe me, he said, I want him to record, otherwise I won't do it, of course, which was an idle threat. I'm sure if they insisted, Frank would have backed down. But at any rate, I do give him a lot of credit and a lot of thanks for insisting that I record. And on that first recording session at Columbia with Frank was Roger Bright, Don Kotzman, Adolf Bazatic on banjo, Randy Vincent on bass, Chuck Christensen on drums. Anyway, that was the band. And Roger Bright and I had already become very, very close friends, very, very good buddies. But on those first Columbia recordings, we had to arrange the music and write out all the bass parts. And at that time, the producer, the A&R man, would follow along to the charts that you had written out. So imagine me at 13 years old writing bass parts out and writing the rhythm parts for banjo and the whole score. And so it brought Roger and I really closely together. But those were the most exciting records that I did. And during that time is when I branched out and started becoming a studio musician too, and recording with Andy Williams and Charlie Daniels and many, many people.
How did you develop your trademark accordion style?
It's an amalgamation of lots of different things. Again, I think that I developed my own style by not really listening to other accordion players that much. I think that if you listen to everything that's around you and you think about it and you hear it in your heart and hear it in your mind and let it come out, that you'll eventually come up with your own style. I thank everything I've ever heard through my life because I'm sure that I use everything I've heard. I was always the kind of guy that would never make fun of a guy who came on stage. Even when I had a lounge, I would never make fun of a guy maybe who played very, very poor button box or very poor piano accordion, because I always thought, well, you know what, I'm going to do my best to make this fella sound as good as he can, and maybe I'm going to learn something from him. Maybe it might be what not to do. And I mean that very sincerely, but at any rate, I always looked at that person as someone I could get something from, and I always held them in great respect.
Well, a few years ago, I recorded a song of yours, Love Me Forever.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to play that right now. I wondered, what do you have to say about that song?
Yeah, well, you know what? That was influenced, certainly not taken from, but influenced by the great Richard Strauss, the style that he would write his music in. And I've always listened to classical records as well, and it just struck me that we should do a second part like that, that same kind of construction. Anyway, I'm glad you recorded it.
I'm glad I did too, Joey. Here it is, Love Me Forever.
Love me forever, and the whole world will share. I adore you, I implore you, please be always there. With our first dance, love had its chance, romance for two. Love me forever, and make all my dreams come true. chance, chance, romanceful too. Love me forever and make all my dreams come true.
Love Me Forever, as recorded by the Mike Schneider Band on our release, The Pursuit of Polka's Lost Frontier. And tell me, Joey, how long did the Mystery Band stay intact?
From 1978 until 1984, when I sold the lounge, I saw that I was starting to get calls to go down to Nashville and recording more with other folks, and decided that I would make a move, that I had done as much as I could with the lounge to promote polka music. I had been on the road for over 25 years at that point and decided to move to Nashville and do nothing but studio recording and production. And of course, I had a little feather in my cap in having produced the first Polka Grammy award-winning record and had recorded with lots of people at that point. I was brought down there really by Steve Popovich, who was running Polygram Records, Mercury Polygram, and my friend Jack Clement, who was a legendary record producer. He had produced Johnny Cash, discovered Jerry Lee Lewis, Charlie Pride, Waylon Jennings, etc. Jack has more gold on his wall than Fort Knox. And they both, of course, Steve had been my friend for a long time, but Jack took a liking to me. And actually, when I bought my house in Nashville, I kept the house in Cleveland, telling my wife, look, we'll keep the house in Cleveland, I'll buy a house in Nashville, see how it works after a year. You guys stay up north, and if it works really well, then everyone can move down there. Just let me try the waters, test the waters for a year. So Jack actually moved in my house with me and helped me share my rent. Not that he had to do it, it was just out of the kindness of his heart. Anyway, while I moved to Nashville, I became executive producer to Johnny Cash. I'd started recording with people like Emmylou Harris, with Roseanne Cash, with the Everly Brothers, and on and on and on it went. And all the while exposing accordion. People say, what instrument did you play? Well, 90% of what I did was on accordion. And people don't stop to think that I'm playing accordion on Shania Twain's record. That record sold almost 20 million copies. So not only have 20 million people heard me, and I'm not talking about me, but let me rephrase it. Not only have 20 million people heard the sound of the accordion, but all their friends have heard it, so multiply that by at least 4, that's 80 million, plus the people that have heard Come On Over, the title track, on videos and on records, on the radio. How many millions of people? And I always was very proud of the fact that I could expose the accordion to folks who either had not heard it or had not thought about it, or perhaps viewed it as an instrument that was just kind of funny, In Nashville, a lot of the great pickers, when they first met me and heard that I played accordion, had a kind of a preconceived idea of what an accordion would do, until I got in the studio and we started playing, and then it all changed. And over the years, I've made some great friends with the greatest players in Nashville. So that's my story in Nashville, and of course it all worked out. I moved my family down and continued to produce, and again, not wanting to go on the road because I thought that I'd had it. I was burned out with the road, producing a lot of records and playing on a lot of recordings. And then I got a call actually from Woody Paul with Riders in the Sky. Would I come and record a record with them? Well, that was my job, and I did. And I recorded an album called Riders Radio Theater on MCA Records. And I really kind of enjoyed it. Sometime later, I got a call from them, from Too Slim, I think it was, saying, would you like to be a guest on our weekly radio show? And I thought, sure, I would. Said I don't have a hat, and he said, we'll bring you a hat. So that happened. And the day after I was the guest, I got a call from them saying, would you like to be a regular on our radio show? And I said, sure. Well, in the meantime, I'm still recording, but it was fun again. It was very fun to play. It was the same kind of excitement that I had with the Yankovic Band. I was playing with 3 guys that I really got along with, musically and personally. And it wasn't long before they asked me to join the band and travel with them. And I did. And I did that for a while, about a year and a half. And then Michael Martin Murphy came to me with a proposition. I went with him for a little while and produced a batch of records on Warner Brothers, including Michael. I still produce Michael to this day. And after that period, I came back with the Writers, became a partner, and there we are. We paved some great roads. We have recorded 2 Grammy Award-winning albums for the Disney label. One is Toy Story 2 featuring Riders in the Sky, and the other album is Monsters Incorporated, Scream Factory Favorites. And I must say that on the first one, Toy Story 2, featuring Riders in the Sky, I'm playing a polka. I wrote the Prospector Polka for Pete the Prospector, who was in the cartoon movie. What else? We did the soundtrack for an Academy Award-winning short subject called For the Birds. The song that we recorded and composed is called The Big High Wire Hop. And just this year, 2004, an animated short subject that I produced and performed the soundtrack for, it was called Boundin', was nominated for an Academy Award this year, too. So we're just doing very, very well. We're very happy. We're very lucky. I always remember my polka roots. I always get back to Cleveland, Ohio on Thanksgiving to see my old friends, to play, and to show the folks in Cleveland, which really became although I'm from Chicago, I moved to Cleveland in 1967 after I had been playing with Frank for about 5 years. But my best friends are in Cleveland, and I always wanted to show Cleveland I'd never forgotten the opportunities that I gotten that were given to me by Yankovic and by my other friends in Cleveland.
One of those opportunities was to record and produce the Grammy Award-winning Polka album, the first one for Frank Yankovic. What year was that, Joey?
1985, I think. And then, of course, we were nominated for a couple more albums. I think America's Favorites was nominated. Live in Nashville was nominated. And then we did, at the latter part of Frank's career, Steve Popovich and I created and produced Songs of the Polka King Volume 1, which had Drew Carey and Chet Atkins, a lot of people on it. I think it had Weird Al Yankovic as well. We follow that with Songs of the Polka King Volume 2. But the last recording that Frank ever did, anywhere, was a song called For Old Time's Sake. And Frank's voice had already gone at that point. And I turned to him and I said, Frank, the best thing we can do to make this really work is to just have you read the lyrics. And he did in his way, and it still captured his enthusiasm and his personality. And there was a point in that recording session where I just turned to him. I was engineering it as well as producing it in my studio in Nashville, and I turned to him and I saw him reading the paper into the microphone. And I just thought, I started with him in 1962, so you're looking at 34 years that I turned to him, and it just flashed in my mind how fast the time had gone and how much I valued the lessons that I had learned in the Yankovic Band at that time, the best friendships that I had made, for example, with Roger Bright, and the miles that I had traveled, and the way I learned to handle myself on stage as well as off stage, and deal with the music as a business, and thinking about all the friends that I had made in Lou Tree Bar and everyone along the way. And if anyone ever listens, then you should play that song, For Old Time's Sake, and that really tells the story. I think of what Frank and I kind of felt for each other over the years.
Well, why don't we do that? We'll close out with that song, For Old Time's Sake, featuring the late, great America's Polka King, Frank Yankovic, as well as you, Joey Miskulin, our Polka Visionary Personality of the Year for 2004. And again, Joey, I would like to thank you for joining us on this special occasion. And of course, also like to congratulate you on the special Polka Visionary Award.
Well, I think my visionary is in hindsight. I think that looking back, everything's been okay, and I'm sure that in the future, everything is going to be okay. Just remember to always play the music with your as much integrity as you can muster.
Well, I'll do that, Joey, and I certainly appreciate examples like yours. And again, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Michael. Thank you.
Many years have passed by since I stood side by side with an old friend and sang out a song. A good friend to me, and man, could we sing. We'd harmonize all night long. We played every hall, we'd been through it all. I remember the good times we shared. Before the memory fades, and for old time's sake, let's get together and sing one more song.
Time sure did fly since you and I got together and sang out a song. Songs that were sung when we were young. Bring back some good memories. So I'll take the lead and you follow me, just like we did way back then. Before the memory fades, and for old time's sake, let's get together and sing one more song.
We had a style that would make people smile, or we'd bring a tear to their eyes.
Those days are gone, but the memory lives on, and it still sends a chill up my spine.
Now you take the lead
And you follow me, just like we did way back then.
before the memory fades.
And for old time's sake, let's get together and sing one more song. Had a style that would make people smile, or we'd bring a tear to their eyes.
Those days are gone, but the memory lives on, and it still sends a chill up my spine. Frank, you take the lead.
And Joey, you follow me, just like we did way back then.
Before the memory fades,
And for old time's sake,
let's get together and sing one more song.
let's get together and sing one more song.
Played with special permission from Joey Miskulin, our Polka Visionary Personality of the Year for 2004. That was For Old Time's Sake from the release Songs of the Polka King Volume 1, and I would imagine that too is available at the Cleveland Style Polka Hall of Fame Music Shop in Cleveland, Ohio. And once again, thanks to Joey Miskulin for being this year's Polka Visionary Personality of the Year. And again, thank you for listening. If you like what you just heard, please consider joining the Polka Visionary Society for only $14.99 per year by going to MikeSchneiderBand.com and clicking on the fan club link at the top of the page. Or consider purchasing one of my CDs on the music page. This is Mike Schneider again, wishing you the best of health in the days ahead. I hope you'll join me again next week, Thursday, for another special throwback edition of the Polka Visionary Podcast.